It's the weekend. It's time for cricket. It's time for My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live, and another double header beckons. First up on Saturday, it's going to be teams, one confident, looking to go forward, another one desperately in need of a win. That's the one we're talking about. Punjab against Kolkata from Abu Dhabi. It's an afternoon game, which means you can pretty much guess the result of the toss if I tell you who won the toss. But we'll also remind you there's a second game coming up, and that's a huge clash. Again, two traditional southern rivals, Chennai and Bangalore, taking on each other. Chennai, just like Punjab, desperate for a win to try and push their way up the table. That one comes from Dubai, but for now, let's focus on the task at hand. The first game, it's Kolkata against Punjab. And for all of you wanting that big news about Christopher Henry Gale, before I bring my guests in, let me tell you that tummy upset is still a little upset. So no Gale yet. We'll talk about that and so much more. Doull Joy Bhattacharjya joining us, gentlemen. That was the big expected news, Simon. But Punjab, they need something more than just fixing a stomach.
Yeah, they do. They need to fix the position on the points table, and they need to fix the composition of their side. I'm not sure how they can do that with the squad they've got. They've chopped, they've changed. I just don't know whether they've found their right combination early enough in the tournament, and they're staring down the barrel of a bottom two, bottom three finish.
Joy, expectedly, the men in purple have won the toss, and they will be setting a score.
Yeah, I think it makes utter sense. I mean, they have the kind of bowling. They've realized how to. They know this Abu Dhabi pitch. They know how to play it. And other than their batting order, which I think is still a little bit of a black box, so they've won the last game. I think everything, most of the other problems that they have, they've solved, and therefore they'll be looking at it and saying, "This is business as usual. All we have to do." And though I hate this word, we just have to execute our plans, and they'll win. That's what they're telling themselves. And if I hear that execute our plans in a press conference again, I will laugh.
I just like someone in a press conference to just say, well, what are the plans? Well, if we bowl the right line and length, then we okay. So what is the right line and length? Yeah, just like someone to keep going at it, because if we execute our plans, if we if we bowl the line and the length, and just like, please, just give me something.
Yeah, I'm wondering which one is more of the banned phrase. One is, of course, executing plans. The other is getting the process right. And a lot of teams seem to talk about that. But on the subject of whatever we call it, Kolkata have done a few things right. They've won the toss today. We're not going to harp too much about what's happened in terms of tosses, because it is skewed towards the team losing the toss so far in the tournament. But let's go straight to the playing 11s. That's more important than the plans and the processes for the moment. And this is Kolkata. There's just been that one change with Shivam Mavi giving way to Prasidh Krishna. And just from the sense we got, Joy, at the toss, it was perhaps a bit of a tactical change. No real major injury mentioned for Shivam Mavi.
No, absolutely. And I think I don't think it's a niggle or something. I think Prasad would have been bowling well in the nets. Shivam wouldn't have been doing that well. They said they're going to do something. See, what's good about this side is one guy just will walk in for another. There's no real change in the way the team is stacked up. And that's important. So while you have a player change, there's continuity in the shape of the team. And I think the problem with the Punjab team is not just the changes they're making. It's the shape of the team is changing repeatedly. And that is perhaps a much bigger problem than a like-for-like player being replaced.
Yeah, I mean, the shape, the combinations, the number of changes they've made, and of course, the fact that they've played more wicketkeepers than any other, enough indication, Simon, that there are a few problems there. Today, it may not have been trying to tinker, but they've had a forced change with an injury to Sheldon Cottrell. And let's just confirm the Punjab team for you. They'll be missing Cottrell, who started the tournament really well. As I said, the big news was no Chris Gale. So Glenn Maxwell retains his place. And CJ, who I think, Simon, you felt should have been retained despite that opening game, gets back into the side.
Yeah, he gets another opportunity. I'd like to see Chris Jordan maybe with the new ball. Now that Cottrell's gone, give Jordan an opportunity to swing that new ball up front and see if he and Mohammad Shami can maybe do some damage up the top of the order. It's a position he has occupied in the past. He doesn't do it that much. He certainly doesn't do it a lot for England, but I just think he's got the ability to swing the ball. And while you only get maybe an over and a half to two of swing early on, it's a good opportunity for him to have a crack with that new ball now that Cottrell is not there. Is it the best combination for them? I just don't know that they've got the massive amount of bench strength. And what do they do? If Gale does come back in the next game, they just move Mike Agarwal to number 3. Does that really help them? Because bowling has been a bit of an issue for them as well. So, it's just been a struggle. It's been a real struggle early on for them.
Yeah, Joy, you don't want to see Gale batting anywhere but opening, but you've got two good buddies. I know they had a run out last time around, but when two good buddies get together to open, you do not want to tinker with that.
No, absolutely. It doesn't make sense. And the other problem is you cannot have Mujib, who averages about 10 in first-class cricket, batting at number 7 in a team. I mean, that's a longer tail than you get into the Australian Kangaroos. You cannot have a tail. It just goes on and on. I mean, when I saw Mujib batting it at number 7, even the Afghanistan first-class sides don't play him at number 7.
I'll tell you something, Joy. If you thought that was a shock, can you imagine Mujib walking in at number 3? I was on the sidelines with my headphones on in Trinidad, and I literally see him coming 2 feet away from me, not even socially distanced. He walks past me, walking in at number 3, and I'm going, what's going on? And you know which team he was playing for? Jamaica. Who was to follow in the dugout? Rovman Powell, Andre Russell, Carlos Brathwaite was sitting down while Mujib walks in at number 3. How's that?
As I said, they say that cricket is a wonderful game for many, many reasons. It is a mysterious and wonderful game, and analyzing it is beyond us. So that's one, The second is that, when I was looking at this Punjab bowling attack, one of the problems of Punjab bowling attack is that after Shami in that first couple of overs, in the first couple of matches, they haven't attacked. It's not been an attack, it's been a defense. And I think Mujib is a good move. What happened in the last match was somebody took Mujib on and gave him, he went for runs. That can always happen with a bowler like Mujib. That's a risk you take. And Mujib is a mentally strong enough guy to take it. But I still think if you go exactly as Simon has been talking about, go early with Jordan, attack with Jordan, Shami, Mujib, these are your best bowlers, and say, you know what, let them go for runs. Just take wickets. I don't care if you're 60 odd in the first 6, but can you, get us 2 or 3 wickets in the first 6? And look, that's the only way this Punjab team can win matches. If they suddenly remember or learn how to take wickets. And there was this huge, some 220 odd balls in which they didn't take a single wicket. So at some point, sorry, that's not them. At some point, they need to really start taking wickets again, and they need to really do it.
Yeah, I think, Joy, you were spot on. It was them. Remember, they went through that game when Hyderabad battered them absolutely on that particular occasion. And then before that was the game against Chennai.
Yes,
of course, the 10-wicket victory. So you were spot on over there. But Simon, just to add to what Joy was saying, if you talk about the lineup for Punjab and if you look at them historically in this tournament, we can present to you the changes they've made, and it's not a pretty picture. Whether your bench strength is good or not, you still don't want so many names going in and out.
Well, sadly, I mean, over the years, and I've been privy to a little bit of information about this over the years, when the owners get involved in team selection, it's a massive problem. Now, Joy will attest to that. The best teams historically in this tournament have got owners that steer clear of cricket decisions. And it's no secret that when you've got people who have no idea about the game trying to make decisions about the game, it's just a recipe for disaster. And the best team, Chennai, have been historically one of the better teams because their owner has very little to do with team selection. He doesn't. It's not a priority. He leaves that up to the cricket people. Mumbai have learned that. There is still some input, I'm sure, but Mumbai have learned that if they leave the cricket people in charge of the cricket decisions, they will get results. Some of the other teams haven't, and Kings 11 Punjab is an absolute example of that.
Yeah, I was just trying to imagine, Joy, if you were sitting in the dugout and good old SRK is trying to get involved, going, Karthik, you can be captain, but I need someone called Rahul to open the batting, which actually is happening now. It's a different matter. But imagine if he says, you have to have an opener called Rahul.
No, I completely agree. And I've seen worse things happen in the auction. I mean, where, one team owner thought it was a lark and bid for someone, and if he finished off the last bit of money, which the guy who was running the team was holding back, and that guy actually happened to be Anil Kumble, so he knows a thing or two about owners interfering in teams. So I'm sure it's something he's not been unused to totally, but it is a problem. It is a serious problem. And see, what happens is, once you start making decisions to placate owners or fans, then what you do is you say, you know what, if I have to have my job next year, this guy wants this guy in the team, I'll put him there. Now he can't be better or worse. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. At least next year when he tells me that, what happened, I'll say, you told me to do this, I did this. And I think that really doesn't work in the long run. It really doesn't work in the long run, because the owners love you to listen to them, but they hate you to listen to them when you don't win, because then they think that, I paid you so much money to tell me to take a walk, and you aren't telling me to take a walk. So yeah, it's not
I
easy.
can tell you,
Happy.
I can tell you, to just pick up from what Joy was saying, if you are someone who has this desire to pick players and you have a few extra bucks or whatever it might be, I'll find you a way for that desire to be fulfilled. Just get on My 11 Circle. It's very simple. Download an app and you can select, you can become that chief selector. You can pick 11 players, you can pick a captain, you can pick a vice captain, you can drop who you like, pick who you like. Nobody's going to stop you. And at the other end, you're going to have a chap called Saurav Ganguly who's going to play against you. How about that? That's going to be even more fun. Hashtag Dada Kavada. So if you have that innate desire in you, that's how you do it. I play, and you can see I lose more often than I win, but let's not talk about that. Let's come back to the game that lies ahead, Punjab against Kolkata. Quick reminder that Kolkata have won the toss. They will be batting first, setting a score. And Simon, just to bring you into this, we are starting to see now the trend of teams who are beginning to understand. I mean, today is an afternoon game. It's a no-brainer. But they're beginning to understand the conditions as we are almost halfway through.
Yeah, they are. And that's been, there was the talk of the dew earlier on and where the ball was get wet and so you had to bowl first and give your bowlers the best opportunity. But what we saw was teams putting good scores on the board and defending them. And that is the way in 2020 cricket and 50-over cricket. If you put a big total on the board, the opposition are under pressure. And that's what this tells you. The last 10 games, you win the toss, win the game 5, win the toss, lost the game 5. So you've got to bat first, I think. Win the toss in game 11.
Yeah, fair enough. Earlier on in the first 13 games, pretty much the team that was winning the toss was losing the game because they really didn't know what to pick. And then they started figuring out it was okay to bat first. They heard Simon Doull wasn't going to be on the show and wanted a full day out. So they said, we have to win the toss and bat first. So all those factors came in.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that is a part of this is the fact that, you see, teams are getting to know their strengths and weaknesses better, which is why you'll see in the beginning a lot of captains who were making wrong decisions. They didn't really know what was strong in their team, what they could depend on, what they couldn't depend on. Now today, Delhi is telling themselves, if we put 160, 165 on the board, our bowling will defend it for us. In most grounds, even in a Sharjah, we have a good chance of defending that kind of total. Other teams, Punjab, are looking at it and saying, I'd like to bat all the time because I really don't trust my bowling. So I think what happens is captains winning tosses and taking bad decisions is the result of captains not really knowing how their teams will pan out. And the longer you sort of play, the better you get to know, okay, this is my team, this is the opposition, this is how much I can win and lose. And I think that's what's happening. Captains, teams are getting to know their own strengths and weaknesses better, and the opposition's strengths and weaknesses better. And I think you'll see better decision-making in the second part of the tournament.
Yeah, in fact, Simon, it was almost unusual the other day. We talk about it amongst ourselves about a good toss to lose, but when you have a captain at the toss saying, I actually was glad that I lost the toss, that sort of says about something about the mental makeup of him and the team.
Yeah, it does. And when with that game the other day in Sharjah, it was the third time they'd used that surface. So we'd used the two pitches for the same game. We used one pitch for the first two games and then another pitch for games 3 and 4 at Sharjah, and then went back to the first pitch again. And it just looked like it was going to be a bit slower. So it wasn't necessarily going to get better in the second half at all. And it proved that way as well. So you just, they've got to learn how to read the situation and read the games and read the pitches and see how many games have been played on that one. It just didn't look like that 210, 215 surface in Sharjah the other day. So, that proved all well and good for Delhi.
Yeah, you've got to say the person who was sort of huffing and puffing with that decision, so much on his mind, is the captain of Punjab, KL Rahul. Remember, it's a new role for him coming into the season as skipper. And certainly a lot of his fans are hoping that he can shed that extra burden and try and be KL Rahul, the aggressive player. But there's a reason why we've also put him on our Boost Stamina Meter feature today, because all that responsibility, there are some X factors that we don't see, and there are many other factors and parameters that we do see. He spent time out there in the middle. He has a stamina score of 81.5, and these individual parameters are what we like to talk about apart from that rating. 75 balls on average in Punjab's innings. That includes balls that he plays and his opponent is non-striker plays. 48.8% of teams' runs during his stay have come via running. And I think that is a factor to remember. He kept early on. Now he's in the field. So he's pretty much done everything there is to do, Simon.
Yeah, he has. And it's an interesting decision with him not keeping. I think Nicholas Puran's probably a tidier keeper. But who's the better fielder? And do they lose anything with Nicholas Puran not being in the field? There was one game, was it the Chennai game, where I think there was one that just went over the head of KL Rahul at mid-off early on from Shane Watson. You'd think that Puran would have caught that. Now, so that's an interesting parameter as well, with him not taking the gloves and Nicholas Puran doing that. But look, he's learning along the way as far as captaincy is concerned, and you can't do a lot more for your team apart from score all the runs and score the runs at the top of the order. And that's why he's, that's why he's so successful. That's why he's our Boost Stamina player, and that's why he spends so much time involved in the game. He's a quality international player. And he's being let down a little bit by some of the guys around him at the moment.
Yeah, well, we'll only hope for KL Rahul's sake, and of course for the sake of the tournament, to see that points table squeeze up a little bit more. But on the other side, we also like to give you tips. If that owner inside you wants to come out, we can help you a little bit along the way if you're new at this game, and we'll give you or let you out our My 11 Circle Trump pick for today, our My 11 Circle Trump card. The kind of left field choice you may not always think of. You pick your big players, you pick the Russells and the Rahuls and the Mayank Agarwals, and once you're done with those big picks, who's left? You need to have someone like Varun Chakravarti. Look at the results so far. And even apart from that Trump pick, Simon, have a look at these results. That one game where he went at 12.25 was in Sharjah. And also he bowled some key overs. He's bowling over number 19. You've got to cut him some slack.
Yeah, 16, 17, 19, 17. So he's bowled late in the piece. He's had to bowl in the power play on one occasion, most of the time through the middle. But what he's doing, and what the big thing with Kolkata is that they've got that good bowling up front. And so they've used Cummins to full effect, whether it be Nagakoti or Marvi as well. Narayan has been held back in the last game he was held back till the 10th, 11th over. They've got two great options, I think. And when Chakravarti can bowl either up front in that power play if he has to, or at the back end, he's got all the variations. And some would say he's an unsung hero, but he was bought for an enormous amount of money. The first time he was bought in the auction was bought for an enormous amount of money. They knew he had the talent. They knew he had the ability. So rather than saying he's unsung or something along those lines, I'd say he's finally delivering on the promise that some thought he had when they paid a lot of money for him.
Yeah, you'd have to say that, Joy, because 8 crores earlier, 4 crores this time around, and purely the value, whether you look at it from cricketing value, since we started the discussion on fantasy points, he gets you those wickets. And sometimes from that point of view, a 1 for 40 is as valuable as a none for 14.
No, absolutely. And I think I completely agree with Simon. I mean, if that much of money is bid, it's not just one team going after him. And I distinctly remember both auctions, there were at least 3 teams interested in him. So they all knew what he was about. But the second part is the courage or the strength of conviction to play him. Because it's one thing to buy a mystery bowler. I remember the first time he played, 1 over, went for 25 runs, got a wicket, didn't bowl again in the tournament. 1 over, that's it. You're paid 8 crore rupees to see one guy bowl 1 over and not bowl again after that. So what I really like about what KKR has done this time is A, they bowled him. B, they trusted in him after that 49, saying A is Sharjah, B is bowlers like this will go. Bowlers like him, like Sunil Narayan was unique because Sunil Narayan and Rashid Khan don't go very often either. They are absolutely unique in that sense that they are both economical and take wickets. But Varun Chakravartis of the world, the Mujibs of this world, they will go every once in a while. And it's important that teams who play them know that these guys are wicket takers. They're going to go. But when they get you wickets, they'll make a difference in the match. And that's what I like about KKR this time. They stuck with him and he's giving them results.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the battle on both sides. You've got a mystery spinner on either side. Of course, Sunil Narayan always around, but in terms of Varun Chakravarti against Mujib, it's going to be a fascinating matchup. But let's look ahead to the second game. We promised you it's a big double header and definitely a game worth talking about at this stage. We will, of course, preview it in between the two games. We may not have that much time. So let's talk about Chennai against Bangalore. Chennai are finding themselves in a situation which they're not familiar with. Let's look at the points table very quickly. This is where they are after 6 games. Won 2 and lost 4. And we've gone back to the beginning of the IPL to see how often after 6 games have they been in a position where they've actually lost more than they've won, which means you're talking about a comeback in terms of qualifying for the playoffs. Have a look at that. 2010, 2012, the only times when it's not been more wins than losses at this stage. How worrying is this, Simon?
It's a worry. I look at this Chennai side, and I know we've seen performances from Watson in the last couple of games and Faf. They didn't get across the line in the last game. Their failure to finish, their failure from their top Indian players has been a real issue. And to me, they're just not getting enough out of that batting unit, and that's been proven the real Achilles heel for them. The bowlers actually, when you look across the board at the best bowling attacks at the start and at the death, Chennai are in the top 4 in both those situations. But so that tells you their batting is letting them down. Their spinners haven't been as effective as they would have been perhaps in India at Chippa, but they haven't done a terrible job compared to other teams. It's the batting that's been an issue. It's the batting that's let them down. I'm not sure they can find a way out of this tournament, to be honest. I wonder, Joy, whether they are in that, that sort of relegation of 6, 7, 8. I think they're playing off for that 6, 7, 8 spot, and it would surprise me a lot if they were to make it to the top 4, just with the way they're going at the moment.
Simon, I do a lot of crossword puzzles, and the only clue I can give them is right now Chennai's only hope, and it's 5 letters: RAINA. You really have to look at it and say that it's a big hole. Their best batsmen not being there in the tournament, where their spinners are also not at their best, and add to that every player's age is caught up with that entire team. So it's a hell of a problem for Stephen Fleming and Dhoni to look at. Having said that, I'm saying they're probably the only people who have these nous and intelligence to be able to make their way through. So the odds are the fat lady has cleared her throat. Definitely, she's waiting to go on stage. Whether she'll sing or not, we'll see in the next couple of days. I think today is a make or break match. If they win today, they're sort of, they're in striking distance. If they lose today, I think it's over. It's curtains for them.
Quick one to wrap up this discussion, Simon. The opposition that they face, they might be a mighty opposition, but they do have a decent record and they tend to do well against Virat Kohli and company.
Yeah, and they're a side that are still just trying to find that balance, and that's the key. And that whenever these two sides play, it's going to be a good contest. And Kohli would love to get one over MSD, and that's they've been great mates. I mean, MSD was a mentor, I think, to Virat when he was coming through the early ranks, and he learned a lot of his captaincy from MS. So look, there's a huge amount of respect, but it's like the little cub, trying to sort of get the pride on his side rather than on the big chief side, isn't it? And Kohli will try and do that today. They're a good side, I think. RCB, that just if they can get Morris back, they might find their mojo and they could go a lot further in this tournament.
Still a long way to go for that game. That's going to be our night game, but middle of the afternoon in the desert heat, it's going to be Kolkata taking on Punjab. And in slightly cooler climes, where we are sitting and having this wonderful discussion, Joy Bhattacharjya, it's time for you with a cool head to give us your Joy Factor question.
It's a weekend, so a fun question for you. Whose international career started with a century by Geoffrey Boycott and ended with a century by the man Geoffrey Boycott described as the Prince of Calcutta? Or did I get it right? Kolkata. How is it? Gautam?
Calcutta.
Calcutta is right.
Calcutta.
Calcutta. You got to get the little Calcutta. You got to get the mouth side. Yeah, the little Yorkshire Calcutta. All right, now we've also got to get our My 11 Circle badge of honor, something I absolutely am horrendous at. So I'm not even going to consider myself a factor. And I'm going to start things off by setting a total for Kolkata at 173. Gentlemen,
Okay.
Simon?
Look, batting first, day game, tough bowling conditions, 197.
Ooh.
Okay.
173, 197. Joy, are you going to be squeezing in between?
No, I'm not. 156.
Oh,
156. Are you going to publicly admit you predicted that for a Kolkata side?
I always
We won't tell
lowball my-
anyone.
I always lowball and watch the fight.
Okay, fair enough. It all goes with the territory. What it means is we have an absolutely huge spread, and somebody, I think, better win today's My 11 Circle badge of honor, all the way from the 150s to touching 200 from Simon Doull. Thank you, gentlemen. Long day lies ahead. It's a double header. Kolkata, Punjab, later Chennai-Bangalore. And for now, we'll be back in the 10th over with Cricbuzz Combox. We hope you've enjoyed. So much more cricketing conversation to come on My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live.